It's Saturday at 6. It's time for your weekly music and entertainment fix.
Backstage with Sinéad Ní.
With all the best music, interviews, and live sessions. Live from the Radio Nova studios in the Dublin Docklands.
Hello and a very good evening to you. Thanks so much for tuning in. I am Sinéad Ní with you here for the next hour. Now, looking back at last Thursday, Adam Clayton of U2 presented Soak with the Choice Music Prize Album of the Year 2015, showcasing the wealth of varying talent this country continues to offer. And as you know, next Saturday is St. Patrick's Day, so in this evening's Backstage, I'm taking a look at the stamp of which Irish music has made on the world. I'll be talking to Eamonn Carr of The Independent, who has travelled the world with his band Horslips, highly acclaimed photographer Ruth Medjber, who has photographed nearly every live act that has come touring through Ireland in the last 12 years. Will be popping by. She'll be talking about the inspirational women in Irish music today. I'll be chatting to Morty McCarthy of 90s cult Irish indie band Sultans of Ping. U2 are in the live room, and I've got the brand new single from PJ Harvey.
Backstage on Radio Nova.
Okay, let's get things started. Horslips are a legendary band who are regarded as the founding fathers of Celtic rock. They have inspired countless local and international acts. During the course of a dramatic 1970s career, Horslips transformed themselves from being a glam-style psychedelic folk group into working the American guitar rock arena circuit with considerable aplomb. Eamonn Carr is the drummer of the band and also a journalist for The Independent, and he joins me now backstage. Eamonn, so great to have you on the show this evening. Now, I'm just looking back at last Thursday, just watching Adam Clayton of U2, being given that task of presenting 19-year-old Brodie Mons Watson, aka Soak, with the Choice Music Prize Album of the Year 2015 award. There was just this wonderful visual bridging of two different generations and different genres. What do you think it is about Ireland that it continues to be this breeding ground for incredibly talented artists?
I was going to say, when you were just talking about, that thing of not quite, sort of like two generations or something. I remember when, in fact, U2 were in a similar sort of position to Soak. They actually played down in Slane, and I think it might have been the very first Slane summer concert that actually had Thin Lizzy as the headline act.
No way.
And so, so Philip made a sort of a conscious thing of, U2 were on, obviously a young Irish band,
yeah.
And he sort of made a conscious thing of having a vibe with them and all that sort of stuff. And so, there was a certain element of maybe some sort of torch, being a baton or something being passed on.
Yeah.
I remember I mentioned that one night, late one night to Paul McInnes, and he scoffed at the idea. But nonetheless, it's only a symbolic thing that you and I would see.
Yeah.
As fans, and anyway, so it's interesting. So the circle is unbroken. It just keeps, going on. Good stuff keeps coming up, and for whatever reason, Ireland just sort of has a wealth of talent. And go back to what you were saying earlier. I know in the 70s when I was touring in America with Horslips, and I couldn't get over the way people treated you. People sort of had a bit more of just a regard or respect or whatever for musicians. And I'm not just talking about the Horses, just other bands on the bill. And in a weird way, I suddenly realised that, in fact, not everybody could sing a song, or not everybody could play guitar. But the way in Ireland, everybody can do a turn at a party,
Exactly. Everyone's got the party piece, the guitar, exactly, something comes out.
Or some bloody thing.
Yeah.
And because we've all maybe done it from school. But in America, that was very, there wasn't much of that going on, So I just thought that was really curious. And so in a funny sort of way, it's almost part of the... I don't know if it's an Irish gene or whatever it might be, but it's certainly part of our makeup. As Horslips, we made a conscious decision actually to stay in Ireland and to base ourselves in Ireland and to try and attempt to, create whatever it was we did out of here, and in the hope that, that was part of what we were and so on. U2, obviously, with the next band, I suppose, in a way, to actually really sort of do that thing themselves, base themselves in Ireland. And whereas prior to that, if you go back, Rory Gallagher had moved out of Ireland, and Skid Row moved out of Ireland with Bruce Shields and Gary and so on. And then Thin Lizzy moved out of Ireland. and based themselves in London. And it's just that there wasn't a sort of a business infrastructure per se. And so at that point, instead of taking Horslips over to London and staying in, whatever, a bedsit or, whatever, a guest house or something, and going into a studio somewhere on some high street somewhere, we decided, bring the studio to Ireland. So we contacted the Rolling Stones and said, can we borrow your mobile studio?
I had seen
the big truck that they had down in the France.
Yeah, I read that, Eamonn, the Rolling Stones mobile studio. Listen, I'm going to pause there for the moment because I do want to play something from Horslips, and I'll get back about the Rolling Stones mobile studio in a moment. But first, from Horslips, this is Dark Doom on Radio Nova. Horslips on Radio Nova with Dark Doom, and you are backstage with Eamonn Carr, drummer of Horslips. Now, Eamonn, you've got an interesting story regarding someone who you walked in on in a studio. But before we hear about that story, just to get back to using the Rolling Stones mobile studio.
The engineers came with it and so on. And the last album they'd been working on was Exile on Main Street.
Oh, mental.
And yeah, really curious. I mean, they were, I tell you one thing. They were so cool. They just said...
Were they?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
In their office. And actually, I'll tell you who it was, really, and I should really give this guy credit, because I don't think he's really received a lot of credit over the years. The extra Stone, the sixth Rolling Stone, was Ian Stewart. I think people probably know him. He was the piano player. Oh. And to be honest, he looked like a bit of a docker, He looked like a big lump of a fella. And... he didn't quite fit in looks-wise with the band. So he basically was an invisible member of the Stones. He was very cool. He went, yeah, of course, great. It was his call, so to speak. Anyway, so what we did was we hired a house down in Tipperary, an old Georgian house, a rambling Georgian house that was sort of, wrecked, and then ran the wires out into the truck out the door, out the window, down into the truck outside the door.
What a rock and roll story is that?
Really
It's so cool.
And then the weird thing was, when we went over to mix the album, we went to London to mix it, because, you wouldn't mix on the truck. So, because there was a better outboard gear and all that in the studio. So the studio that the Stones used tended to be, at that stage, Olympic Studio in Barnes. So we set sail for Barnes. And on the first evening, we arrived in, I rambled out to walk around, and have a mooch. And because there were a few other there were three, I think there was a big studio, a smaller one, and then there was a sort of a mixing studio. And anyway, this guy goes, "Hey, dude," and I go, turn around, and it was Bobby Keys, the sax player with the Stones, see? And he said, "Hey, what's happening?" And I said, "Oh, I'm just mixing on that." I said, "Oh, by the way, we're mixing on your truck." And he went, "All right, man. Oh, yeah, you're the Irish band. All right, yeah."
What about the rest of the boys? Did he meet, Mick or Keith or?
Well, no, not at that particular time. I don't know what Bobby was doing there. He was obviously in to play on somebody else's album.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So,
busy
I mean,
boy.
Jimmy Page was there, and Johnny Hallyday happened to be there. And I'm not sure if it was that album or maybe the next album. I was walking down I think it was the second album, the Toyne, and we were mixing it there, and I walked down the corridor, and I the big studio, and I sort of, looked in it was a tiny little glass, and I didn't see any action. So what did I do? I walked in.
Yeah.
But the door that I walked in was the door into the actual, the room itself that the gear would be in, and there was the drum kit was set up on a drum riser, quite a high drum riser, which I'd never seen in the studio, and was surrounded by about bloody 10 microphones. And there was a guy playing the drums. And then I looked at him. He didn't even notice that I was there. He had his headphones on.
Yeah.
And then I looked to the right, and I could see the big glass window, and everybody is staring at me.
You going, "Who's your man who just walked in?"
And it was the fucking Eagles.
You're kidding!
I almost ruined their... And it was actually Desperado. They were working on Desperado.
Get out of here, Eamonn. No way.
Yeah. I didn't hang. I just got straight back out the door and hid,
Make sure you don't get kicked out of the studio.
Henley coming to kick my ass.
That is so funny. Well, listen, Eamonn Carr, I'll leave it there for now.
Right,
I will speak to you again. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Take her handy.
Oh, Eamonn Carr from the Horslips. I would do anything to go and see Horslips live. Now, also discussing the wonder and joy of Irish music on Backstage this evening are Morty McCarthy, drummer with Sultans of Ping, and music photographer Ruth Medjber. Up next, Conor Irwin of Radio Nova will have the latest in music news. This week, it's regarding AC/DC, the 1975, and George Martin, who he sadly said goodbye to this week. So here now is a stunning track from the Beatles in which the producer worked his magic. Eleanor Rigby on Radio Nova.
Up the rice in the church where a wedding has been. Lives in a dream, waits at the window, wearing the face that she keeps in a jar by the door. Who is it for? All the lonely people. Where do they all come from? All the lonely people. Where do they all belong? Father Mackenzie, writing the words of a sermon that no one will hear. No one comes near, look at him working, darning his socks in the night when there's nobody there. What does he care? All the lonely people, where do they all come from? All the lonely people, where do they all belong? Look at all the lovely people.
News Update.
Conor Eamonn of Radio Nova has this week's roundup of news stories. So, Conor, we just heard Eleanor Rigby from the Beatles, which featured the genius producing skills of Mr. George Martin. So sad to learn of his passing the other day.
Yeah, we started off the week with the very sad news that Sir George Martin died at the age of 90. He, of course, the legendary producer of much of the Beatles' music, so many of their hits, and producing from Abbey Road Studios. He was an absolute legend. Paul McCartney saying he was like a father to him, and if anyone was deserving of the title of the fifth Beatle, it was him. Ringo actually breaking the news on Twitter of Sir George Martin's death, reaching out to his family and giving his condolences, and saying, you know, the usual peace and love from Ringo. But a very sad day and very sad news that one of the absolute legends of music, everyone knew him as the fifth Beatle, Sir George Martin, died at the age of 90.
R.I.P. George Martin. And there's quite bad news for AC/DC's frontman this week.
Brian Johnson has been told, you got to quit touring or you're going to go completely deaf. And AC/DC, they postponed all of the remainder of their tour, so 10 dates postponed of their Rock or Bust tour. But they did say that they're going to play them at some stage later in the year, but with more than likely a guest singer. Dave Evans, who was the original AC/DC singer, he not expecting a call or anything like that, but he did kind of say it'd be cool to do a couple of gigs as a guest with the lads. But the sad news is that Brian Johnson won't be doing it unless he wants to risk going completely deaf. Evans, he has kind of stopped short of throwing his hat into the ring. He said he'd jump at the chance, though. We'll watch this space and see who the guest singer is going to be.
Tough shoes to fill. Heartbroken for Brian Johnson. And now on to news regarding a rather long album title from the 1975. Tell us more.
They've broken a very unusual record in the States. It's the longest ever album title to reach number one in the US. The band, it's their second album, and it's called I Like It When You Sleep, For You Are So Beautiful Yet So Unaware of It. Catchy number. It's not a bad album, by the way, but it's number one in the States and the longest ever album title to reach number one.
Didn't take them long to get to number one. Number one in the UK too as well. Well, Conor Eamonn of Radio Nova, thank you so much for bringing us up to date on all the latest in music news.
Cheers, Sinead. Chat to you next week.
And now, Greg Cochran, it's over to you. What new music do you have in store for us here on Nova?
Thanks, Sinead. New music this week. A band formed in Illinois back in 1973. They've been touring quietly, well, not really quietly, special guests with the likes of Boston in 2014. They were out last year with Peter Frampton, Rick Nielsen and co. Cheap Trick. January this year, they announced their first album in 5 years, Bang, Zoom, Crazy, Hello. And this is the first single. It's When I Wake Up Tomorrow. Keeping it short and sweet this week. You'll hear this song a lot in the coming weeks on Nova. Cheap Trick, When I Wake Up Tomorrow. That's our new music for this week.
Greg Cochran of Radio Nova, thank you very much. Okay, here is one which I am thrilled to play for you this evening. It's the brand new one from the legendary Mercury Music Prize winning, Emmy Award winning, Grammy Award nominated artist PJ Harvey. She is my rock and roll queen. She has just released her second single from her forthcoming album, The Hope 6 Demolition Project, which is due out on April 15th. Cannot wait for it. She worked on this album over a 4-year period during from her time in Kosovo, Afghanistan and Washington DC. And talking about the whole creative process, PJ Harvey has been quoted as saying, when I'm writing a song, I visualise the entire scene. I can see the colours, I can tell the time of day, I can sense the mood, I can see the light changing, the shadows moving, everything in that picture. Gathering information from secondary sources felt too far removed from what I was trying to write about. I wanted to smell the air, feel the soil and meet the people of the countries I was fascinated with. So here's the result of such experiential fascination from PJ Harvey. This is a beautiful track. The Community of Hope on Nova.
At least that's what I'm told. And here's the one
How great is that? That's the new single from PJ Harvey on Nova. It's called The Community of Hope. It was released just yesterday. Yet to come on Backstage, you'll be hearing from music photographer Ruth Medjber. She'll be shining a light on the incredible Irish women in music. I've also got a live one from you too. Conor McCaffrey of The Star will be dropping by to recommend the gigs coming up this week. Joining me next on Backstage is Morty McCarthy of the Sultans of Ping. They started out in early 1989, quickly built up a rabid following based on their phenomenal live shows. They got signed early on. Their debut LP, Casual Sex in a Cineplex, released in 1993, crashed into the top 30 album charts in the UK. They are a 90s cult Irish indie band, and just to remind you of how glorious they were is the anthem that everyone knows and loves. It's Where's Me Jumper from Sultans of Ping, up next on Radio Nova.
Backstage on Radio Nova.